Senior leadership will lie to you and tell you that they do not know. But if you ask the DSA crew leads and specialists what they are experiencing in the field, they will tell you. Demand for FEMA to give you those incident reports. They will substantiate what is happening to us in the field.
Well, it turns out that the Federal Emergency Management Agency, also known as FEMA, has fired one of their supervisors for telling relief workers to bypass homes that have signage indicating support for Donald Trump in the wake of some devastating hurricanes. So this is a disastrous story, especially at a time when you have, individuals on the right saying that FEMA is purposely avoiding providing relief services to conservative households or Trump supporting households. And that has also led to some hostility toward relief workers who do end up knocking on people's doors with the intention of helping them after a tragic natural disaster event. And so let's get into the details about this woman and what she is now claiming after her firing. So the former FEMA supervisor is Marne, Washington, and she argues that the policy is actually commonplace for the federal agency. Now, there are caveats to what she's saying, but before we get to that, let's rewind a little bit and talk about what led to her firing in the first place. So according to Mediaite, FEMA Administrator Deanne Criswell announced on Saturday that Washington had been let go after she told relief workers to avoid homes advertising Trump in Florida. Criswell claimed Washington did not uphold the core values of FEMA. But as we know, Republicans never pass up an opportunity to do politically motivated investigations. And to be fair, I mean, you have an incident that I do think spurs the need for an investigation to see if this is a widespread practice, because guys, you can't support that kind of behavior in any government agency, that type of political discrimination. This is a government agency that is tasked with providing relief to people who have suffered a traumatic, disastrous, damaging natural disaster. And the idea that tax-paying American citizens should be excluded based on their political beliefs is cruel and immoral. So I want to be clear about that. But you have Ron DeSantis, making a really big deal about this. He says that the blatant weaponization of government by partisan activists and the federal bureaucracy is yet another reason why the Biden-Harris administration is in its final days. At my direction, the Division of Emergency Management is launching an investigation into the federal government's targeted discrimination of Floridians who support Donald Trump. But to be fair, that investigation, again, might be worthwhile given what happened with Marne, Washington, what she told the FEMA workers, and more importantly, what she's now saying in an interview with Roland Martin. So she spoke to Roland Martin for an exclusive interview, and she says that avoiding certain homes based on political signage is actually a widespread practice, and that is concerning. Let's watch.
They told me verbally I was fired, but they never provided me anything in writing stating that I was fired. They all alleged that these actions were made on my own recognizances and that it was for my own political advances. However, if you look at the record, there is what we call a community trend. And unfortunately, it just so happened that the political hostility that was encountered by my team, and I was on 2 different teams during this deployment, they just so happened to have the Trump campaign signage. FEMA always preaches avoidance first and then de-escalation. So this is not isolated. This is a colossal event of avoidance, not just in the state of Florida, but you will find avoidance in the Carolinas. Senior leadership will lie to you and tell you that they do not know. But if you ask the DSA crew leads and specialists what they are experiencing in the field, they will tell you. Demand for FEMA to give you those incident reports. They will substantiate what is happening to us in the field.
So you catch on to what she said in the very end when she references what is happening to us on the field. So I think the way that she communicated what's been going on during her interview with Roland Martin wasn't the best way of articulating what the concerns are here, right? So look, in my opinion, what the if what she's saying is true, and the protocol is to avoid households that you just suspect might be hostile, that's wrong. You shouldn't do that. I don't think that's a good policy. But what she's trying to get at is, look, FEMA workers, relief workers are met with violence, they're met with hostility, and they're fearful for their safety. And so there are certain households that, depending on the signage or the support for a specific candidate, they'll avoid those homes out of fear that that household might have some hostile members who will treat the relief workers poorly or maybe even meet them with violence. But you can't just make that assumption. That's not okay. Okay, you can't just assume that because someone has a Trump sign on their lawn or any indication that they're supportive of one candidate or the other, that they're definitely gonna meet you with violence, and so you should avoid providing relief services to them. That's insane. That is not a good policy. So that's why I think an investigation might actually be legitimate here, because if there is a widespread problem of relief workers putting themselves in danger in order to do their jobs, well, okay, what can we do to keep them safe while also ensuring that political discrimination isn't playing a role in whose doors they knock on? Now, with that in mind, she goes further to explain that if a few homes on a specific street have proven to have some hostile residents, well, then the entire street ends up getting punished for it.
So if we are noticing, for example, on Mary Street, you'll find 3 or 4 homes that we tried to canvass and we were greeted with unwelcomed arms, or people are coming out guns blazing or he's screaming at us, then that's a street we need to avoid altogether.
This was a text message that you sent us where one of the folks out there said, "Good morning, LaGros Road is politically hostile. We are not canvassing this street any further. Moved on to North Lakeview Road. Great decision. Thanks for the update."
Exactly. So my senior leadership was aware of the amount of encounters that was going on in the field. Again, this was my second time and a second crew in Florida and experiencing unwelcomed behavior from the residents. Now, not all Floridians have been unpleasant, but for the most part, the ones that are very passionate about their disdain for FEMA, they have no problem expressing it.
So look, I understand both sides of this argument, right? Like, I can understand FEMA workers fearing for their safety, especially if they've been met with hostility. But I can also understand how unbelievably unjust it is for certain households to not be contacted by FEMA officials or relief workers when they might desperately need help, simply based on some indication that they are supportive of Donald Trump, or that they have other neighbors on the street who met the relief workers with some hostility. There needs to be a better solution to this. That's the point that I'm trying to get at. It is unfortunate that there is an issue in this country of distrust toward government agencies like FEMA. And certainly some of the claims that were made by Republicans in the aftermath of these devastating hurricanes did not help the situation. But you wanna know what also doesn't help the situation? Passing up homes or bypassing homes specifically based on that household's political affiliation. That's only gonna make the situation worse. And so if safety is a real concern here, there needs to be a solution. Maybe local law enforcement escort some of the relief workers to ensure that they stay safe. I don't know what the answer is, but there needs to be a better answer than passing up certain homes out of fear. These are people who might desperately need help, and it is FEMA's job to provide that assistance. Any excuse having to do with political leanings and the possibility of political violence as a result, it just doesn't cut it for me personally. So I do think an investigation makes sense, but more importantly, I hope they find a solution to ensure everyone who needs help gets the help they deserve.
If you enjoyed this video, that's because of our members. They make us independent, they make us strong, and they make us honest. Become a member today by hitting the join button below.